Welcome, everyone, to this regular session of the South Kingstown Town Council. It is Monday, August 22nd. The time is 7:30. Our first order of business is the pledge to the flag. Please rise and join me. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Council President Collins.
Here.
Council Vice President Haley.
Here.
Councilwoman Clow.
Here.
Councilwoman Gledhill.
Here.
Councilman Veely.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. Item 4 on our agenda is the approval of minutes of previous meetings.
I make a motion that we approve item number 4, both A and B, as presented.
Second. So moved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously. Item 5 is the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve item 5, the consent agenda, as presented tonight.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously as well. Item 6 is licenses. 6A is a resolution granting a victualling license to United Restaurants doing business as Pizza Way, 682 Kingstown Road in Wakefield. The application is by Roya Omri of Westmoreland in Saunderstown. Come on up. And just state your name for the record. Oh, yeah, to the podium.
Hi. Khaled Amri, and I'm actually a partner in the business.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about Pizza Way.
Well, it's a fast food business. I have been a Subway franchisee. I operate the Subway in Wakefield, and we just opened that pizza. We actually make it in front of customers, and I'm sorry, I do apologize. I wasn't prepared for this, so I don't know what to say. I'm really sorry.
Oh, we'll be pretty gentle. Don't worry.
If you have any question, you can ask me, but again, I do apologize. Like I said, I wasn't prepared for this.
Are you currently open? And
Yes, we are.
And what are your hours of operation?
Right now, it's 10 to 11. 10 a.m. to 11 p.m.
7 days a week are you open?
Yes.
Great. Any other?
You're going to be delivering?
Soon, very soon, yes.
Any other questions for Colin?
Again, I'm very sorry. Like I said, I wasn't
Don't be
prepared.
sorry.
No, you're
Thank
fine.
you.
Don't
I
worry.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we approve licenses item 6A as presented for Pizza Way.
Good luck.
So moved. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously.
Good luck.
Congratulations. Item B is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct a portion of the 25th annual Firm-Man Half Iron Triathlon in South Kingstown on Sunday, September 11th, to FIRM, Fisk Independent Race Management, subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement, indemnifying the town, issuance of a certificate of insurance, naming the town as an additional insured for the event in the amounts specified by the town, approval by the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, and subject to any conditions set by the town's Transportation and Traffic Review Committee. Proceeds to benefit Narragansett Parks and Recreation Department. Wendy Fisk Truhanovich.
Hi, I'm not Wendy. Fred Bartlett, Narragansett. It's our 20th year for the Firm-Man in the Narragansett, South County area. It's going to be held on 9/11 this year. Last year, $6,000 was raised for the town of Narragansett for Parks and Recreation, and we're getting close to about $200,000 over the course of the time. Now, I realize that it's not coming to South Kingstown, but over the years, the Cristofaro Skate Park has been built with the monies from the Firm-Man, and most, if not all, of the local triathletes tried to do this event to support the local kids in the local area in general. We're hoping to bring the numbers back up. Used to be around 800 people, and we're down in the 300, 400 range. but we're working on some swim options, some bike and swim options, a shorter race. And we use very little of South Kingstown. We use Mumford Road on the bike course to get out on Route 1. All 4 police departments are involved. We go down to Westerly and back. And then the run course is mostly in Narragansett, but we do use Middlebridge Road, and we do hire South Kingston Police for all the details and whatever you all require.
How do you register for the race?
I'm sorry?
How do you go about registering for the race?
Oh, you just go, you can go on to Google and just go to triathlon, but you can go to firm-racing.com, and they have a list of all the races. And the week after, there's actually a small sprint race in Narragansett as well. Yes, ma'am.
Even though these proceeds do benefit Narragansett Parks and Recreation, which I'd love that if they were benefiting us, I will say that there are youth in South Kingstown, especially throughout the summer, that utilize Cristofaro for especially the basketball league that you have down there and things that go down.
Boone Street, yeah, the playgrounds, and yeah.
I do know there are children in South Kingstown that are involved as well, although I wish, it's benefiting us, but I do understand.
Yeah, I have never been married. I don't have any kids, but I'm actively involved in this because I believe because the race does give half the profits, the net profits, back to the local community. That's why I've been involved for 20 years. I wouldn't be doing this if it didn't get back in one shape, way, or form.
Passion is a strong thing.
Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion, we approve item 6B.
Second?
So moved. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Item C is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct a portion of the second annual Haley Dowdell Memorial Motorcycle Run for Cystic Fibrosis in South Kingstown on Sunday, October 2nd, to the Haley Dowdell Memorial Foundation. This is subject to all those same stipulations in the first, was that last motion we made? And proceeds to benefit the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, application by William E. Rush. Is William here?
Good evening. My name is William Rush.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us again about this motorcycle run.
This motorcycle run starts in Coventry, West Greenwich Elks. It's a total of 80 miles. It traverses through scenic southern Rhode Island, if you will, passes through South Kingston. We do have a stop at the Ocean Mist, where the business will entertain us and feed us for about 45 minutes. We'll continue through South Kingston, and we'll end up at the Coventry West Greenwich Elks. We anticipate 100 to 150 bikers at this event. It is our second annual event. All proceeds do go to cystic fibrosis. We've established a 501c3 corporation in honor of Haley Dowdell Memorial Foundation. Last year we raised and contributed. We raised about $10,000. We kept about $1,500 to keep us going for the year, and then we donated about $8,500 at last year's event.
Any questions? Yeah,
Sounds like a great cause. Good luck.
Thank you.
do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve item 6C as presented.
Second?
So moved. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion
Thank
carries.
you.
Good luck.
Congratulations. Good luck. Item D is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the St. Francis Fall Festival 5K Run Walk on Saturday, October 15th. This is from 8:30 a.m. at 8:30 a.m. to St. Francis of Assisi Church of Wakefield, subject to those same stipulations. And the application is by Gregory Bahai of Briarwood. Behe. I can be right all the time.
You didn't say that right. It's B.
Yeah.
He's not here, so he asked me to represent St. Francis. My name's Ellen Schwab, and I'm a co-chair of the event committee for St. Francis. And we haven't had, this weekend is the weekend of the Feast of St. Francis of Assisi. And we haven't had this race in a few years because we didn't have anybody to run it. And it's a popular event. So this year, Greg P., he came to the forefront, and he's running it for us. He's gave me a little packet. Has he already, the certificate of insurance, has he already presented that to you? Because I see that's one thing that's mentioned on here. And the liability? Home harmless agreement? Yeah.
Very good. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about the 5K Run Walk. How can you register?
You can register online. I know it's with the, the National Federation, whatever it is. And I know you go right into to St. Francis of Assisi, and it says road race, and you can register. It's $20 a person and $40 maximum per family.
Okay.
Or a team.
Where does the course go through?
Oh. It starts on Winter Street, and it goes north, and then down Willard Avenue to Allen Avenue, then up to South Road, and back down Dockery, back to Willard, and back down Winter again. It's been registered by Ray Nelson. He's a certified in professional running, I guess. I don't know. I didn't know I had to come up here, so he said,
Yeah.
just have the papers. So
Race
I'm not a
organizer.
runner, as you can see.
No.
No, but I know you haven't had it in a couple of years, but you have in the past. And
Oh, yes,
I
it's a
have-
popular event, yes.
It always was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're happy that Greg came to the forefront and is running it for us again.
I live on Winter Street, so I'll be waving to you
Oh,
on the
okay.
way.
Well, you won't see me. I'll be a marshal out there. I won't be running. Not anymore. I used to do that.
Great.
Make a motion to approve license item 6D.
Second.
So moved. Any
Thank
further
you.
discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. 6E is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the Muse Tavern Gear and Beer 6.9K road race on Sunday, November 20th, 2016 at 11:30 a.m. to David Barnes Development, Inc., doing business as the Muse Tavern. Steve, would it be appropriate to hear both this and the F at the same time, or? No, we'll just do it one at a time. All right. Same stipulations. Here we go. Proceeds to benefit the Easter Seals of Rhode Island, application by Daniel Rubino.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jen Martin. I'm the events manager at Easter Seals, Rhode Island, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Easter Seals and Dan Rubino with the Muse. This is a road race that has taken place for the past 17 years throughout South Kingstown. It begins at the Muse and ends at the Muse, where there's a party afterwards with raffle prizes for top winners. It's a great event. We're hoping to have about 1,500 people in attendance with lots of spectators hoping to shop on Main Street after or before the event. So,
And how do you register and all that?
you can register online either at the Muse Tavern's website or Easter Seals Rhode Island website. So.
And this event is typically the biggest fundraising event for Easter Seals.
This is our largest event of the year, yes. So.
I think it keeps getting bigger.
Yeah.
Crowds come up.
We've kind of leveled off, I think.
How much did you raise last year?
$43,500 we received from the Muse.
That is amazing.
Yes.
That's great.
I hear a motion.
Motion to approve license item 6E.
I second that motion.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Please stick around for
Sure.
item 6F here. A resolution granting a Class F 19-hour beverage license to Easter Seals, Rhode Island, for an event to be held on Sunday, November 20th, 2016, from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. under a tent in the parking lot at 456 Main Street in conjunction with the Muse Tavern Gear and Beer 6.9K road race. Application by Jennifer Martin. Welcome back.
Thank you. Do I need to explain this, or?
I think we're good. Do I hear a motion?
Yeah. I make a motion to approve item 6F as presented.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with your event.
Thanks, Rachel.
Item G is a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the Matunic Half Marathon 5K road race on Sunday, May 21st, 2017, at 8 a.m. to Ocean State Multisport. This is subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement, indemnifying the town, issuance of a certificate of insurance, naming the town as an additional insured for the event, and the amounts specified by the town, approval of the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, and subject to conditions by the town's Transportation and Traffic Review Committee. Application by Gary Minisian, maybe. How are you?
Good, how are you? So we're looking to have a...
Just state your name for the record, just so we know.
We're looking to have a 5K half marathon starting at Matunic Elementary School. So I did a little research, and I went down to Matunic Beach and talked to a couple of the store owners. And basically, we kind of knew that we didn't want to have it on the peak season, so we picked May. And so basically, was told as long as we didn't come past Cards Pond Road, we were kind of like, okay. So I met with the traffic committee a couple of times, and the course that we came up with was it starts at Matunic Elementary School, and it goes down Matunic Schoolhouse Road, and then it takes a left onto Charlestown Beach Road. So it goes from basically the Matunic Middle School down to Charlestown Beach. I did get approval from the Charlestown Police Chief, and I got approval from the traffic from South Kingstown. So we're just looking to have it. I've organized a lot of races. I do them mostly in Seekonk, Rehoboth, Smithfield. So we just kind of picked this place to have a race. It looked like a nice place. So that's what we're looking to do. We don't know how many runners we're going to have. I mean, I just had my last half marathon was close to 500, but that was after the second year. So the first year, I'm not really sure what we're going to get. I would say anywhere between 300 and 500 runners, given where it is, because it's a beautiful, course. So
I think it's great you talk to some of the business owners because it's very important down there that the races not interfere with their season.
I do watch the meetings there.
Yeah.
So I learned from last year, believe me. And it's important to talk to them because, I don't want to interrupt anybody. It's just,
Are the proceeds benefiting any organization?
Well, it is my company, but because it's the first year, I always give something someplace. Usually it's like the Seekonk Senior Center. It's kids who go to camp at the Seekonk YMCA. So we can allocate like $3 per entry from each runner to go someplace here. You're more than welcome to choose where it goes. I don't care where it goes. It's up to you guys. If you have 2 different places you want it to go, we're more than welcome to distribute it wherever you want it to go.
Could I just have you state your name for the record?
Gary Minisian.
Thank you. Any other questions for Gary? Yeah. We could. Is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak to this item? Okay. Right. Well, do I hear a motion then?
I would make a motion that we approve the request with stipulation that some of the proceeds would be brought back to the town to support an agency that you all deem appropriate or we deem appropriate.
Well, I heard you just talking about the basketball or whatever it was. Did you just say something about recreation or is it?
No.
I thought I heard
I
something.
think one of the other races is giving to the Narragansett Parks and
We
Rec.
can allocate it any way you want it to go.
That's not our place
Nope.
to tell
If there's
you
a
where
place
to-
that you think it needs to go, we're more than happy to send it to that place where you think it goes. Because I don't know South Kingstown. I don't know what their needs are. So if you tell me where you want it to go, we can send the check there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
if
I don't
it's
think
appropriate
that's
for us to
our
suggest.
place. That's not our place. No.
We could suggest some places.
Well, if you want to
offline.
suggest them, you are more than happy to look at the list, whatever they are. We get will get the insurance that is needed, for the town, and
Maybe I should rescind that motion based on the fact that there is no stipulated.
Yeah.
I can't hear her.
Well, what she's saying is, whether we approve it or not, if you choose to give back to the community, that's your choice. We're not going to make that a
Oh, no, we
stipulation.
do every town that we go into, so no, that's not even an option. We will do that.
Mike?
So that's not going to be in the motion, right? Yeah, okay.
Right, correct.
So the motion is just to approve.
Okay.
Did I hear a second?
Second. Oh,
Okay. So moved. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to item 7 on our agenda, the public hearings. Public hearing A is relative to an application for expansion of a license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages in South Kingstown in accordance with the general laws of 1956. This application is of a Class B limited liquor license filed by VGB LLC, doing business as Pascal's Pizzeria Napolitana, 60 South County Commons Way, Wakefield, Rhode Island, by Pascal Iliano, managing member. Applicant requests permission to expand the area in which alcoholic beverages may be served to include an exterior patio in accordance with a special use permit granted May 25th, 2016 by the Zoning Board of Review, further defined in a site plan dated January 28th, 2016 on file in the town clerk's office. Said expansion is contingent upon compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes and user fees in arrears to the town, and the correction of any fire code violations. Hello.
Good evening. I'm John Kenyon, attorney for the applicant. With me tonight is Pasquale Iliano, representing VGB LLC. Back in last July, this council granted a Class B limited liquor license to Pasquale. He's been operating for about a year. Business has been very good. Requesting tonight permission to expand to a small area outside the very front of the building. The area contains 6 tables with 4 seats each for a total of 24 seats. They'd be enclosed by a retaining wall and also planters. The zoning permits the restaurant. It meets all the parking and drainage requirements. The zoning board issued a special use permit in June granting permission to do this. So I just have a couple questions for Pasquale. Do you swear in or not? Mike? No? Pasquale, if you could state and spell your name for the record.
Yep. Pasquale Iliano. How are you tonight?
And Pasquale, are you a member of VGB LLC?
Yes, I am.
And does VGB LLC lease property at 60 South County Commons Way?
Yes, sir.
Did you receive a Class B liquor license from this council approximately a year ago?
Yes, I did.
When did you open up?
August 1st, 2015.
And how have things been going business-wise?
Oh, very good. Thank you, everybody, by the way. Yes, very good.
Have you had any issues with your liquor license since you opened up?
Absolutely not.
And can you just briefly explain the type of restaurant you operate?
It's an Italian restaurant and pizzeria.
Approximately how many seats do you have inside?
We got approximately 38 seats.
And are there times when the seats are filled?
Yes.
And when does that normally happen?
Well, it happens pretty much during rush hours at night from 5 to 7:30, 8 o'clock.
And are you looking to expand some of the seating to the outside?
Yes, that would be a good thing for us for the summer. It's not only for the overflow, because we can really handle that with the restaurant that we have already, but I think it would be great to have like some sort of outdoor seating. I think a lot of people appreciate that, and I think it's a good idea.
Can you describe the board exactly where the seating would take place?
Okay, so there would be 2 retaining wall on the side, approximately 8 feet. There is the whole. We have a whole design done by the architect. It's going to be all fenced in. It's going to be walls and fences and pillars, and we're also going to put an overextended pergola, and everything will be enclosed. We will have hostess stations out there, and it will be pretty much like incorporated to the current operation. It would be nothing that would be far from where we do or anything that will endanger anything. So
And are you proposing 6 tables with 4 seats each?
I think so. It might be maybe less than that, but that's pretty much what we're looking into it. Want to make sure that we keep it wide enough for people to walk through and all that.
And will there be enough room for people to walk
Yes,
by the restaurant?
absolutely. The way it's designed, the tables will be on the side and the entrance will be in the middle where the door is. So
And is there enough room for the people to walk into the restaurant?
yes.
And did you design it so it had limited impact on the pedestrian circulation in
Oh,
that
the
area?
perimeter would be the same, and there would be the whole thing. It would be redirected on the outside of the perimeter of the walkway, and we're gonna bring the thing inside, right from the outside of the restaurant, about approximately 8-10 feet out. So
And what are your normal hours of operation?
11 to 9,
And
pretty much every day.
Are you planning any outside entertainment?
No, absolutely not.
Do you ever take a day off?
Yes.
Are you open every day?
Yes.
And do you anticipate any issues with providing service or overseeing the outside area?
No, there would be, no. Like I said, we're going to do some arrangement even with the windows that kind of will open when the whole thing will be open. Like I said, the hostess will be right out there, right on the outside, and there will be plenty of cameras and all that.
And can you see from your area where
Yes.
you stand behind the existing seating now?
Absolutely.
Can you see right outside?
Yes.
And
And if we got to make some arrangement, like I said, like we're going to work with the windows, and we have this major logo right on each side of the window. We're thinking about building like an opening, a window that opens at the time, so they would be connected somehow.
And how would the proposed expansion impact your business? Would it be a positive?
It would be a positive, absolutely. Yeah.
I have no further questions. If the council has any?
I'm going to ask the craziest question in the world. Do you have enough restroom facilities to anticipate this expansion, or is there a certain code? That's just a dumb question. I'm just asking.
What was that, John?
Whether you need additional bathrooms by increasing the seating?
No, because we have two full-size bathrooms over there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have when we build them accessible for, I don't know what the capacity is, like over 50. I think altogether they're going to be around 55, 60 seats. So
Okay, that's fine.
I think
there'll be plenty of bathroom.
we're pretty happy to see a business that's come into town and flourished and done so well here that
You
you're
gotta help
back
with that.
so soon wanting to expand. That's
Where is
a testament to some good food and hard work.
We've heard very nice
Yeah.
things at the council
I
level.
can't eat. I'm sorry. I mean, I
We've-
got to have
we've-
John
we've
help
heard-
me out.
We've heard very, very favorable things here at the council level regarding your operation of
John
business.
can fill you in.
Thank you very much. I
Your pizza is
have like
delicious.
a little bit of pressure on my ear. That's why.
No pressure, no pressure.
No, my ear. That's why I can hear very well. I'm sorry.
Now, will the
Literally pulled him out of the kitchen.
Oh yeah, I know.
I bet.
will the expansion affect any kind of ADA requirements? I mean, will it still be easily accessible for people to come in a wheelchair or anything like
Yes.
that? Yep.
Absolutely. There are ramps on the side. Everything is. We designed it together with the architect, so we went on every detail. And,
Great.
And like I said, I don't want to maximize the amount of seating. If the architect tells me, hey, you can have 20 seats, but I think that would be more comfortable for us to have like 12 seats because of the space of people walking in and out and all that, I would put 10 seats. It doesn't.
That's great.
It's more of like bring the restaurant to a next fun level. In a way for customers to enjoy some outdoor seating.
I love al fresco seating, so I'm totally on board.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We can answer any other questions that the public may have.
More question? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
I make a motion to close. Oh, you do.
Let's just see if there's anybody from the public who wants to comment on this. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment on this item? All right, now we're ready for it.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that public hearing is closed. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve item number 7A as presented for Pasquale's Pizzeria Napolitano.
Second?
So moved. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Congratulations and good luck.
Welcome.
7B is a public hearing continued from July 25th, 2016, relative to an application by Paul Sherman of Fresh Meadow Road in Wakefield. This is requesting proposed text amendments to the zoning ordinance of the town of South Kingstown, which would redefine the household, one or more persons living together in a single dwelling unit with common access to and common use of all living and eating areas and all areas and facilities for the preparation and storage of food within the dwelling unit. The term household unit shall be synonymous with the term dwelling unit for determining the number of such units allowed within any structure on any lot in any zoning district. An individual household shall consist of any one of the following. A is a family, which may also include servants and employees living with the family. And B is a person or group not exceeding 4 unrelated persons living together. So again, this would change the zoning ordinance from 3 to 4 unrelated persons. And before we begin the hearing, Dale, you had a few items.
A communication dated August 12, 2016, to the council from the chair of the South Kingston Planning Board. The Planning Board is not recommending approval of this amendment. However, they are recommending that the council consider creating an ad hoc committee comprised of a broad group of stakeholders to further study and publicly debate the issue before a decision is reached. Second communication is a communication from Paul Sherman, the applicant, asking for approval of this amendment. The third communication is from Karen DiMartino Menzel, recommending approval of this amendment.
Very good. We continued this from the last meeting. That was because we were waiting for a recommendation from the planning board. As you may have heard just now, they have recommended against this redefinition of the household.
Could I just, at the, I believe it was July 25th meeting, we had received a correspondence that the council, I think, forwarded to this public hearing from Fran Akadakos.
Mm-hmm.
So that should also be incorporated into the record this evening.
All right. Steve, did you want to add anything to the background that we've already stated up here, and or are we?
No, I think at this point this would be for Paul or his attorney to make presentation on the hearing.
Good evening once again. John Kenyon, attorney for the applicant Paul Sherman. As you stated, the applicant's proposing a text amendment to the zoning ordinance definition of household. The only change he's making is in the second section where it says a person or group not exceeding 3 unrelated persons living together. He's requesting that the 3 be changed to 4. That definition comes from the Rhode Island Zoning Enabling Act, which was passed in 1991. And that states that the maximum number may be set by local ordinance, but this maximum should not be less than 3. So it doesn't require that you have 3. It just says you can't do less than 3. Some towns have done 3. Some towns have done 4. When the town of South Kingstown enacted this zoning ordinance, I believe it was 1999, I don't know if there was much thought given to that number, whether that number really makes sense in today's society. Mr. Sherman thought it would was a good idea to bring this forward just to have the discussion of whether the number 3 makes sense or whether 4 makes sense. So this time, Paul's going to come up and...
Hi, I'm Paul Sherman. I would just like to read a little statement I sent to the town council, but I'd like to read it so the audience can know who I am and why I'm asking for this. I come here before you not as a landlord who has been cited to be in violation of this very outdated policy, I thought it was written in the early 70s. But as a landlord who feels that the existing zoning ordinance does not reflect the living situation of today's population in South Kingstown. The population of the town has increased to over 25%. It's discriminatory and unrealistic in a town where a situation of renting to more than 3 unrelated people is already prevalent, including non-traditional families and students. I'm here alone today to present this amendment change, but there are also many others who are not willing to come forward and admit they are in violation and put themselves in risk of being cited. If one looks at rental listings in the area, which I've done, one will find house after house advertised with 4 or more bedrooms available for rent. Even the University of Rhode Island website has a long list of rentals meant to accommodate more than 3 students. This is the situation in South Kingstown and virtually every campus community I've looked into. When I went to college, I lived with 3 others in an apartment in New Hampshire. My son went to Quinnipiac University and lived off campus with 4 friends. My daughter went to UNH 10 years ago and lived off campus with 3 of her friends. When she graduated and became a professional, she shared a home with 3 other women to split expenses. I would imagine that many of you did the same or have children who did. This is not just about students, though. It's about young professionals, working class, and all of our population seeking affordable housing. Police Chief Vespia has noted that the practice of co-housing among groups of 4 or more is very common in South Kingstown, and the only issue that might exist in some cases is inadequate parking. For houses that are not in summer rental areas such as Eastward Look and Bonnet Shores, we generally do not have the party issues except on a very infrequent occasions. Moreover, if someone is going to hold a party, they could do so just as well with just 1 or 2 other roommates. I have 7 houses I rent in Kingston surrounded on 3 sides by university property. I have an on-site property manager, plenty of parking, and no party problems at all. I don't allow it, and the students who rent for me are forbidden to hold parties in our contract. My issue is that I have empty bedrooms in each house and many applicants needing housing, but a policy that does not allow me to rent my empty bedrooms to them. After the Planning Board's initial meeting and some questions raised by the audience, the Board asked its staff to look at how an ordinance might be designed to deal with this issue. After a few weeks of study, on July 12th, actually, the planning staff came back with some suggestions where a special use permit process be designed for situations like mine that would allow a landlord to apply to be able to rent homes to more than the existing ordinance allows, if certain criteria are met. I don't believe this has been forwarded to the town council, but actually I think it has now. But I agree wholeheartedly with this concept. I think it's a really good idea. It carefully addresses the issues that an ad hoc committee would be addressing. I would suggest that it should apply in situations where there are more than 4 people to be living in a house. The existing ordinance of only allowing 3 unrelated people is impossible to enforce for a number of reasons and unrealistic in number. Increasing it to 4 would in most cases eliminate the need for a special use permit, as well as help solve a housing issue that encourages violations. Kingston, especially, has been in a university community for as long as URI has been there, and it is unreasonable to think that living here, one would not have some students as neighbors. To conclude, I will ask the Town Council to vote favorably on my amendment to the existing ordinance to increase the number of unrelated persons in a household to 4. Consider the well-thought-out response of the planning staff to implement a new special use permit designation with criteria for more than 4 unrelated persons in a household. As the Planning Board does recommend, set up an ad hoc committee to do further study, but first increase the existing limit to 4 unrelated persons to reflect the 25% increase of population since this ordinance was first implemented. Thanks very much for considering my amendment.
Thanks, Paul. Are there questions for Paul, Council?
Paul, I just wanted to say a lot of the things that you mentioned, the stipulations that you have in your own leases with your tenants, sounds like you're an exemplary landlord. I've had my share of not so great landlords, so it's refreshing to hear that you set those stipulations out. And I think what we're going to hear from people tonight is a lot of examples of landlords that aren't quite as conscientious as you have been. You said you own 7 properties?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think just the fact that you've researched this so well and brought it forward really shows your dedication to making sure this isn't a burden to the community. So I just wanted to applaud you for that and thank you for your perspective.
Yeah, and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And I just wanted to say that the problem really with the ordinance is there's nowhere in the town rules and regulations for someone like me to go and say, look, I have a situation that is different. Where can I apply for a special use or a variance for that? And I talked to Ben Murray about it. I talked to Jeff O'Hara, and they said, no, there's really no way to do this except to ask for the number to be increased. And I could have asked for 5 or 6. I don't like that idea any more than anybody else does. But I just think 3 is unrealistic. And, you know, we're living in a day and age where people have to live together to afford to live in this town. It's expensive. And as I say, my daughter lived with 3 other professional girls when she graduated from college. I have that situation in some cases. It's just, I think it can be controlled, but you have to have some way of enforcing it.
I think one of the biggest concerns is parking.
Absolutely.
And to have ample parking to accommodate what you're renting, because I think there's been a situation in town where we've seen parking hazards due to, overfilling a
Yeah, I
spot.
do not disagree. Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
There could be a parking place per bedroom, per
Right. Right.
off street, not on the grass. I mean, there are lots of ways to control this, but there's just no way it's being done.
Right. Right.
Would seem to me, Paul, that I'm familiar with your layout, and that your project is perfect for the 4.
Yeah.
Surrounded on 3 sides by the university, you really have no neighbors that are close, and you run a good operation. But I mean, it's a public hearing. We're going to hear from others, and there are situations in town that are not ideal. So.
No, I totally understand. I grew up in Kingston. I know what people's concerns are.
I'd like to be able to apply it to your project, but
Right. Can find a way.
Are there any other questions for Paul? Paul, thank you for bringing this to us, and thank you for being a stickler for the rules and having the courage to say that you're going to break the rules. At this point, we'll accept public comment. So it's really sort of first come, first serve. Just state your name for the record and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Tom Green. I live at 302 Woodruff. I wrote a letter to the editor of Narragansett Times. I believe you all got copies. Do you want me to repeat or reiterate what's been going on at 296 Woodruff for the last 8 or 9 years?
Yeah, you can. I mean, I think.
In a nutshell. All right. The house turned over at 296. That's on the corner of Woodruff and Silver Lake. It turned over from private residence to rental in 2006, 7, or 8. I can't remember which. A gentleman from Boston bought it. He turned it into a rental property, started renting to students, never less than 4, frequently 5, 6, never less than 4. Problems started within a week of those students moving in. Noise, garbage everywhere. It is just chaos, absolute chaos. And just to preface, those students came over to meet with us before moving in, nicest kids around. All we asked is that they maintain some sense of order and respect for the neighbors, peace and quiet. It's actually a very quiet neighborhood. They said fine. They promised us. The police were there within a week. This went on year after year. There were, I believe, 6 cycles of student rentals between 2008 and last year. The house was off site for 2 years for renovations, whatever. 2 of those, so it was rented 6 times to students. 2 of those 6 times, no problems. Students, they were great, very friendly, they were quiet. The big thing is quiet. 3 or 4 years ago, there was a melee in the front yard. 4 young ladies had rented the place, North Kingstown residents. Again, very nice, very pleasant women. They've been over to meet with us, gave us their cell phone numbers. We promised we'll keep things quiet. When the police came, there were 100 people in the yard. They arrested people for fighting. 2 of the 4 girls, I believe there are only 4 there, were arrested for or cited for underage drinking. There was an article in either the Narragansett Times or the Journal the following day. It was like a convent over there from that point on. Either their parents stepped in or they just shut them down. Last year was the worst. A new owner took over or the year before last, put a lot of money, a lot of time into renovating the place. He did a great job. He personally went around to all the neighbors, introduced himself, told us what he was going to do. I spoke to him at length on the phone. I'd missed the personal interview. He promised me that he was an experienced landlord. He rented to students in Narragansett. He said he had residential properties incorporated, watching over the place. They were experienced. They were going to vet all the applicants. He promised me no problems. He said, call me if there are any problems. Call the police. I want to know everything that's going on there. And the guy was honest. I genuinely believe he put his best foot forward. And the police were there within the first week for the first time. 2 weeks later, they were there for the second time. And this is for noise. 1 o'clock in the morning. They're blaring music. My windows are rattling. I'm 50 feet away, and the windows are rattling. And this is at 2 o'clock in the morning. The police come, bang on the door. The kids, they shut the lights off. They turn the music down. They don't let the cops in. They just don't acknowledge other than to turn their music down. This goes on and on and on. I called the landlord. Every time the police were there, he was genuinely apologetic. He said he'll do what he can. By the 4th call, he told me they were out of control. They were tearing the place apart. He had rented, apparently, to 8 students. There were 16 people living there. 16 cars in the morning. I go to the Y every day, and people come in and tell me 16, 15, 18 cars there this morning. It was absurd. Come this past spring, they started having parties at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Friday afternoons. They were falling down drunk by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They were publicly urinating everywhere. My kitchen window looks out on that house. It's within 50 feet of the side of the house. They line up against the side of the house and pee against the side of the house. They were urinating in the air conditioning units. They were vomiting everywhere. It's ridiculous what's going on. I went to the police. The police said, our hands are tied. We can't go into the house without a search warrant. You can file a complaint and go to court. I file a complaint and go to court. Things are going to get worse. Let's be realistic. So our hands are tied. The owner promised me he would do everything he could. When I saw him in May, the day they moved out, they just left the place. They destroyed it. They absolutely destroyed his house. And he's got them all in court. He had the families, the parents co-sign the leases, but it was an obscenity what went on in that place. So the conditions were getting worse. Subsequent to my having written that letter to the editor, my wife went around to some of the neighbors. The consensus is people are just fed up with what's been going on there. And there's nothing any of us can do. I mean, it doesn't make any difference whether there are 4 people there, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a matter of control. And this landlord, who I believe, and I still believe he was genuine, said he was an experienced renter. I've heard of Paul Sherman's rentals, and he manages them properly. So as far as increasing from 3 to 4, I say no right now. I don't want to, close the door altogether. But I think before you consider increasing to 4, the ad hoc committee is a good idea. I'd volunteer for it. And, I've known Paul for a while, and, I'll work with him if necessary. But somebody has to do something to put a leash on these kids. The same realtor represents 390 Woodruff, which is now advertised with 8 bedrooms. Again, renovated, a lot of money, increased the occupancy from 6 bedrooms to 8. It's advertised as a summer rental, but summer rental means students in the fall. As far as the summer rentals, I got no issue. We've had at least 50 cycles of summer renters in over the past 10 years. Nothing but positive experience. So that's not an issue. It's strictly students. And somebody has to put a leash on them. I've got some ideas that, I'd be willing to sit down with somebody and talk about, because I think they can be controlled. But to just increase the limit from 3 to 4 when nobody's following the limit anyway, I mean, it just gives them license to continue doing what they're doing. There has to be, whether it's apart from this issue of the 3 or 4 of the occupancy, one way or the other, it has to be addressed. And just as an aside, we're not affected anymore because the landlord told me he would probably never rent to students again. He was just, it's the hard way. He learned the hard way. But if push comes to shove, he's got a mortgage to make. I mean, so, and as I said, some of those guys were fine. They were very, very pleasant. But
Steve, I had a question relating to this. When a resident calls and makes a complaint and the police show up and it's evident that there are more people living there than the 3 people, what's the procedure for us? Do we then cite the owner of the building and say there can only be 3 unrelated people living there, or how does that work?
Violation notice went out on this specific case.
Okay.
And we ended up in court with the property owner because it was evident there was more than 3 people living in that facility. The main concern that we had, other than the disruptions, was the public safety problem as far as the car parking on Silver Lake Avenue, as well as out onto Woodruff Avenue. We got it into court, but remember, with a zoning violation, it takes us to provide a notice, to provide a period for compliance with the order. Then it takes us the time to get into court. The owner was provided with an opportunity to get through the semester, and that he was no longer going to be able to rent. And I believe that's how the solution came out. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff.
But then they refused to leave.
Excuse me. I cited the owner with a violation notice for more than 3 unrelated people living there. It's pretty evident when you have 16 cars and you have eight cars there on a daily basis at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they all have different license plates from different states. It's pretty evident. I cited the owner. The owner responded to my notice of violation and stated that he wasn't aware of the ordinance being what it was. Now, I'm not talking about the previous owner, the new owner, but this was just this, past school year. And he requested, I believe it might have been in October, November, to have some leeway. He hired an attorney, and I agreed to yes. When the semester is over, that would be it. The attorney called and stated that he instituted eviction notices to the people that were living there, but they had answered their notice, so he had to wait for that to play out in court. That evidently played out at the end of the semester, at the end of the school year. They had moved out, and the owner stated that he wasn't going to rent it to students any longer. I received a complaint from a lady who had paid a deposit for her daughter to live in that residence, and the realtor returned the deposit saying that it's no longer going to be rented to a student basis. It's only going to be for families. The property farther up on Woodruff Avenue, when they applied for a building permit to expand and renovate, expand the bedrooms, I laid the law down and said, I have to have some assurance that, that you can't just rent out rooms. And I received a letter from the owner stating that he was going to do it on a weekly or a monthly basis, only to families for the tourist season or whatever. He was not going to rent out rooms to college students. That's in the file. That's about the best as what we can do.
I'm Lillian Holmeson, 82 Parkwood Drive. I was on the planning board when this decision was made, and I can assure you that we gave it very careful consideration. Now, any decision like this will have very many implications, some of them quite unintended. So before you go on considering this, think about it seriously. It may have unintended consequences, especially for the village of Kingston. And you have heard enough of everything else, so that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. This is the first time I'm at one of these meetings, so if I do something wrong, please forgive me. My name is Patricia Graves, and I'm on the other side of the house on Silver Lake that goes down, this White House that we're talking about. So the Greens are on one side, and then I'm on the other side. Silver Lake goes down the street. And I'd like to say that the house perhaps may be rented to 8 people. However, usually they have roommates, which they, I'm sure, do not disclose. In addition to that, they have partners that come in. And there can be cars going down from Woodruff Avenue all the way up Silver Lake, almost to Kenyon, with people who are renting that home. Additionally, they'll park on the other side of the street, which now makes it very difficult for 2 cars to go by. So they're going down the hill and then they're coming back up the hill. They've sometimes parked in my driveway, literally in my driveway when there's been parties. There's a party almost every single night in that house. And last year, I started picking up the glass bottles and the cans, etc., and putting them on the kids' cars. Well, they quickly got the message, and they told me that they would come out every morning and that they would sweep. I have to say, by probably 10 o'clock, they did come out in the morning, but I couldn't get out of my driveway some mornings because of the debris that was in the road. There have been mattresses on the property, and they sit outside in the roof, additionally to vomiting and all sorts of other things outside the property. So, you know, I've lived there for about 15 years, and I knew the owners, the previous owners, the Myers, who had been there, raised their family there, and it's been very unpleasant since the Myers are no longer there. And I also want to strongly state that I feel that it's a waste of our officers to have to come out at least once a week, if not more often. Usually one does not come alone. There's usually 2 or 3. This takes them away from protecting us in other areas. And it's because of these wild parties that they have, brawls in the front lawn. I mean, it's horrible to live there. It really has taken away the serenity that we have on Woodruff Avenue. Believe it or not, it is a cut-through road, but it's been a quiet neighborhood until it's been used as rental places, usually for college students. And this last group That was a fraternity that I understand was kicked off of campus. So I just want to have it be said that it's really been unfortunate that that house has to be rented to so many people. Again, if it's 8 people, there's usually 16. They have other people in the rooms, and then there's girlfriends and boyfriends. It's really deplorable.
I'm sorry for all the troubles that you've suffered through. Hopefully the owner is being sincere and that's not going to continue to happen for you.
Hi, my name is Joe Santos, and I'm from Narragansett, from 29 Hope Lane, and I'm here actually to support the South Kingston town because of the bad experiences that we've been having in Narragansett as a result of the student problem. And I heard people here today say that East Willock, it's not, there's no problem at all there. But, the fact is that East Willock, on some weekends is so bad that it's almost like being on Bourbon Street in New Orleans on the worst possible time there. And we have nothing but problems, in Narragansett. And, I hope that the town of South Kingston considers keeping the no more than 3 because of the problems. It's living in Narragansett on East Willock North is like living in hell. I have 6 grandchildren, and I cannot bring them down here to Narragansett.
Thank you.
Is this good?
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Randy Dimmick, resident in West Kingston, and I've come to show lack of support for this proposal of a change from 3 to 4 by Mr. Sherman, although I must admit that I've known him from many years ago, and I commend his approach to being a landlord as he has described it at URI. I think that if some other situations were more similar to that, there might not be the objection that I'm hearing this evening. But this is not my major concern. It is up to you intellectually to create a decision that makes sense for the town of South Kingstown. My issue is around enforcement of the number, whatever the magic number may be. So I talked to a few people in this building and in Narragansett about how this is approached, and it appears to be a little bit of a tale of 2 towns. My understanding, and I'm not a land use attorney or I'm not a government official as you folks are, but as best I can gather it, in this town, if something is to happen because there is a violation of zoning or of this ordinance, or if there's any kind of difficulty, it is up to somebody to complain to Mr. O'Hara, in which case he does basically what he described about 10 minutes ago. And he's it. He already has 2 hats in this building as it is. That's not of a lot of enforcement for what appears to be a significant issue in the town. In Narragansett is rather different. That's been well chronicled by 2 local newspapers for many years now, especially during the past 2 to 3 years. Their situation, as best I can understand it, seems to begin with this piece of paper, which requires landlords to register. There's a fee, there's a late fee, and they must certify to the validity of contact numbers so that they can personally be reached by town government. And then they need to certify by signing. And in particular, it says that this document, this lease registration document, and the lease that is associated with the property, with the names of all active tenants, are to be posted inside the primary access door of the dwelling unit. So now there's a beginning, and you know who's who in the play. I'd then like, if you could let me quote just a little bit from this memorandum, internal memorandum, Town of Narragansett, dated 10 March this year, which is from Terrence Fleming, It is from Michael DeLuca, the planning director, to the planning board, where he addresses this issue generally and specifically. And he mentions, as Mr. Kenyon did before, about how the number 3 has become a little bit of a magic number, perhaps with more thought in some towns than in other towns. I do not know the history in this town. In any case, he spends most of his time in this document addressing consistency with the comprehensive plan in the town of Narragansett. And he speaks specifically to land use appropriateness, and I quote him now in saying that revising the number of unrelated individuals that may make up a household in residential zones could be appropriate for implementation dependent on the will of the town. I'm glad I'm not you folks, because you need to determine the will of this town. I can't claim to know for sure what it is, but I think that I do. I've lived and worked here for rather a long time, and you need to make that determination. There are, according to his numbers, 20 municipalities in Rhode Island that use the 3 number. The other 13 of record have other numbers. I wish you luck on that. But he also mentions with data that the housing stock in Narragansett is primarily single-family detached housing units, which currently make up 84% of the town's 9,910 dwelling units. So they're being reflective as best they can. What did this town grow up as? What did it develop into? Well, it's 84% single-family units, so possibly that number would reflect that. That is what you folks need to do. To my point about enforcement, he says, and I quote from his writing, "The plan acknowledges that property abuse, overcrowding, and other disturbances of absentee landlords has become a major concern." Page 104 of the plan, that's the comprehensive plan, suggests that developing enforcement programs to address quality of life issues such as noise, parking, and lack of maintenance. The related section in Chapter 14, Implementation, identifies action item number 97 that says, and now I quote from the comprehensive plan, that an increase in monitoring of rental housing should be undertaken as an ongoing program by the town building inspector. End of quote. To Mr. DeLuca again, as all involved know, these tasks are being undertaken. The building official now has 2 part-time employees who monitor housing conditions directly, paying particular attention to the neighborhoods that have a high percentage of seasonal rentals. The rental registration program has become more sophisticated in the past 10 years. Many violations have been caught and corrected in that time. So they seem to have, I stress that I am saying they seem to have. This is my best interpretation, talking with town clerks' offices and the building inspectors in both of the towns. They seem to have a more proactive approach to this situation. Of course, we are not Narragansett. Their difficulties are fairly well known, courtesy of the local papers and much anecdotal word of mouth. It is up to you folks to determine the number, but then to determine, in my opinion, an enforcement policy that works. It hasn't been working in Narragansett. Now, what I quoted to you is new this March and April. Again, I'm reading from a document dated 10 March. So it is yet to be seen exactly how effective that will be. What I submit to you folks, since you have this recommendation to form a committee to look into this issue, to consider, in conjunction with the magic number, consider the enforcement policy that will work. This is not Narragansett, this is South Kingstown. You folks are responsible for it. But I recommend that you consider as best you can what the will of the people is. Narragansett this spring may have gone ahead and invented the wheel. I'm not suggesting that you folks reinvent it. Perhaps we can watch how theirs turns a little bit in the meantime while this ad hoc committee does some work. I wish you well with this. I wish Mr. Sherman well with his project, which seems like a very good project. And I have great sympathy for the Greens and hope that you folks can prevent that from increasing. Thank you.
Thank you.
getting up the courage. My name is Carol Kaufman. I live on Bayberry Road and have lived there since about 1978. I actually began living in Kingston in '64 as a student, and I love the community, and I enjoy the vitality of the students. And there are many responsible landlords, and I didn't realize that you are among those. But I'd have to explain one of the unexpected consequences of increased rentals. On our street, Bayberry, I think there are 12 units, and counting French Road, there might be 15 units. And over the past 40 years, occasionally a widowed woman with 4 bedrooms might rent a house out, but she was living there. And often the renter would walk to class and take the bus. Currently, there are 4 rentals. The owners are not present. And there are, in one house, just 2 cars, but multiple cars in the other houses. And it's a very convenient place to walk to campus, but they have these cars. And the parking driveways don't accommodate 4 cars. Very often, one of the cars is parked in the street. And Bayberry Road doesn't have sidewalks. Bayberry Road is a pedestrian walkway coming from University Gardens, coming from Biscuit City Road. Students walking back to there are now 3 6-unit buildings where there used to be 1 duplex at the south end of Bayberry Road. There are wonderful parking facilities there, but every one of those cars comes in and leaves. And often Bayberry Road is a shortcut. The same people who park and live there walk on Bayberry Road. It is a hazardous situation because people who use it as a shortcut don't appreciate necessarily where a pedestrian is going to be. They may make a turn on French Road. We have had people in the winter, when there's ice on the side, people parking in the street. There's only one rather narrow way to get through, and somebody comes barreling around a corner at 30 miles an hour, not a bad speed, I guess, if you can make a corner at that speed. But there could be somebody slipping on the ice. It just seems like one of those unintended, dangerous consequences of having. I have 4 bedrooms, and in my dotage, I and my husband might choose to live on the ground floor and rent our 4 bedrooms. I didn't realize we could do that. But I also think that it's safer to stick with the number we have now until we consider, are we going to build wider streets? Are we going to have walkways? What are we going to do with the foot traffic, especially in the neighborhood of Kingston? Because it's not just Bayberry Road that's unpaved. I think Briar Lane and Fortin Road may have sidewalks or not, but there's an awful lot of foot traffic. And I just think it's a hazard. We currently don't have any toddlers on our street. The youngest people are graduating. But after living this long, I realized somebody could sell to a young family. And then we have the problem with little kids rolling balls into the street, too. That's my piece.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Susan Axelrod, and I live in Kingston. I am the president of the Kingston Improvement Association. KIA has represented the interests of the residents of Kingston for 132 years. We presently have about 225 families who are members of the KIA, and I've heard from a number of people in the last week very anxious about this potential change to our ordinance, which will potentially increase student rentals in Kingston Village. I Googled student rental problems, and I immediately found a number of news articles and a University of Georgia Law Review story about college towns and the problems that they've faced and the conflict caused by student rentals. Problems with noise, litter, parking, traffic, houses that are unkempt, large parties, and maybe most importantly, a loss of a sense of community by the residents who stay. A number of residents were using the term student ghetto to describe the parts of their town where student rentals have become prolific. And a number of older residents of town have just simply moved away because it becomes an unpalatable place to live. All of these towns that I read about are now attempting to reverse the course and reduce the number of rentals in their towns. They're coming up with creative ways to make student rentals less appealing and hoping that houses begin to revert back to single-family ownerships and families. In my research, I could not find any town trying to increase the number of student rentals in their community. I ask what possible benefit this change to our laws would have for the residents of South Kingstown and Kingston Village. In fact, you need look no further than Narragansett to see up close the problems caused by an excess of student rentals. Because of our proximity to URI, I believe that South Kingstown, and especially Kingston, are extremely vulnerable to the changes to the composition of our neighborhoods. On their website, URI claims that they house 57% of their undergraduate population. That leaves 4,955 undergraduates looking for housing somewhere down the road. I do not believe that any residents of this town want to wake up and find this across the street from their house. This is a photograph of 3 houses that were built in the last few years on Lower College Road at the end of Bayberry in Kingston. The developers of these houses are built in a residential zone, knew full well the occupancy laws of this town when these 5-bedroom apartments were built. Law would allow 18 students total for these 3 houses, yet there are 30 bedrooms and 39 parking spaces. I believe this is a complete snubbing of their nose to the laws in South Kingstown, and now they've been caught breaking the law. Please tell me that South Kingstown would not validate this arrogant behavior by granting them a pass and increasing their legal rental limits. The petitioner of tonight's discussion similarly built houses exceeding the lawful capacity and is now attempting to change the law. I ask, what possible benefit this change to our laws would have to the people in South Kingstown and Kingston Village? In addition to our collective fear of finding ourselves living next door to a party house, we also fear a more subtle changeover to our neighborhoods. A transient population and absentee landlords will not benefit our community. A speaker at one of our planning board meetings about this topic suggested that it doesn't really matter how many kids live next door, the neighbors can simply call the police every time that students are too noisy. Seriously, has the South Kingstown Police given their thumbs up that this would be an acceptable way to handle this problem? Do we have the resources to accommodate deliberately changing the laws to create a problem in this town that we don't really have right now? A loosening of the laws governing student rentals will certainly make our neighborhoods more appealing to developers and potential landlords. Further, I believe we need to more strictly enforce the laws we have now. I understand that granting a special use permit may be an appealing way to solve this petition tonight. However, granting a special use permit to one developer simply kicks the problem down the road until another developer comes, and then we have the problem that we've been trying to avoid. I implore you to please tread here very carefully. Please consider the rights of your town residents and place them above the desires of a developer hoping to increase his profits. Thank you for letting me speak.
My name is Jim Aukerman, and I represent Lower College Road Properties, LLC. I'm here to speak in favor of Paul Sherman's proposal. South Kingstown has 2 problems as I see it. One is student housing, and the other is a broader issue of affordable housing. And I believe the premise that you should start with in looking at this proposal is that property owners should have the most rights possible, not the least. And you have to have some rationale, some logical basis for restrictions. Now, what the ordinance talks about is residences and related parties, but times have changed, and what used to be related parties in non-traditional families now is very different. We just had in the newspaper over the weekend census data which shows that approximately half the children born in Rhode Island today are born to unwed parents. So you can easily see that you may have unrelated parents with children, stepchildren, and other non-traditional families looking for affordable housing. And if we really are sincere about having affordable housing for low-income families in this town, then we shouldn't punish responsible landlords who wish to rent to those families or to those unrelated, non-traditional groups of individuals. Similarly, students should be able to live together if they're good neighbors. And the issue is whether or not they're good neighbors. Whether they're students or not, if they're not good neighbors, then the ordinances having to do with noise and so forth should be strictly enforced. But the question about what is a family and more than 3 or 4 or 5 or however many you want to say that are unrelated living together puts a burden on the town staff. I believe it's possibly unconstitutional, the ordinance. It's certainly archaic, and it's unfair to responsible landlords and responsible tenants. The biggest problem, as has been mentioned, is that it's just unenforceable. And when you have unenforceable ordinances on the books, it invites disregard and violation. So I would advise the town to support the increase from 3 to 4 and to take seriously the planning staff's suggestion that special use permits be considered for more than 4 where it's appropriate, when there's adequate supply of ample on-site parking and so forth. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Jobeck, and I'm the director of Welcome House, which is a homeless shelter in Wakefield. I basically want to support the planning department's position to have an ad hoc group to look at this further. What I've heard tonight is really an issue of accountability. I don't think it's a matter of 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a matter of how people are conducting themselves there. Prior to being with Welcome House, I ran an organization that was across 7 states. We leased a lot of property. Every single landlord that we leased to had my personal cell phone. And I can tell you, if I got more than 1 or 2 calls, the tenant issues were resolved. I was the president of a condo association in New Hampshire. We had 35 units. I was the president for about 12 years. I held every owner, the board held every owner of those condos responsible for the conduct of anybody that they rented to. And if I got a phone call at 1 in the morning from an angry owner that somebody next door was causing a problem, we addressed it. We addressed it by, telling that owner if that's the type of people, that's the type of screening they're doing, they simply can't rent anymore. I personally evicted some people from the property. There was a property owner who had rented to some people. They were setting off fireworks close to the buildings. And I personally told them to get out. And I told that owner, don't do that again. So I don't want to take up a lot of time. There's been a lot of discussion tonight. The issue for me is that people that come into Welcome House oftentimes are just getting their life together again. They've got part-time jobs. 3 of them together, they can't live in South County. It's just not affordable. When you have 4 people, now the numbers start to work a little more favorably. So again, I realize this is a heated issue. I feel very badly for the property owners that are putting up with what I would say is totally unaccountability from the owner. Again, I applaud the planning board for not totally closing the books. I think that the population, again, that we work with is probably average age of 30 or 40. They're in bed by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, honestly. they're not going to be causing the issues that, unfortunately, these owners have had to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. I too am a Narragansett resident, and I've heard my neighborhood. My name's Stephen Ferrandi, and my neighborhood's been talked about quite a bit tonight. I happen to be the president of the Eastwood Look Homeowners Association, so if anybody wants to know how it's been the last 10 years in my neighborhood, feel free. There's been a lot of things bandied about people's rights, about renting to who they want to and unrelated. What you have in front of you, the council, is really a genie that's, if you increase the number, is going to be let out of the bottle. We came into a situation in Narragansett that had basically no enforcement of any number for about 20 years. So whatever was happening down there could be. People would come in, predatory investors, they'd buy a property, 4-bedroom colonial, take the garage, put 2 egress windows, make it another 2 bedrooms, rent to 6 people. You're fortunate here where you have some enforcement and this town has been smart enough to hold the line. But keep in mind, if any number of those changes, now look at the other situation where, let's say there's a 3-bedroom house and an investor comes in and wants to rent it, that already gets increased to a 4-bedroom. So I would tread carefully on how you approach this, just from some experience. We had to have an all-out 1,000-person riot for our town to actually do something about this. And we've got a consortium of 7 or 8 or 9 neighborhoods that volunteer people worked hard just to kind of gain some ground. Now we have a number now, and we hope the town can enforce it and hold the line. But I'd be very careful if you change the number at all. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Debbie Sheldon. I live in Kingston, and I also am a university police officer. We have several renters that live next door to me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but if you can speak into the microphone.
I have a house next door to me that rents. There's supposed to be 3 in the house. There's always 5 or 6 people. Landlord's not there. He doesn't realize that. Every weekend, there's a party, 300 people. One time there was even a gun. There's always 5 or 6 police officers that have to come. They clear it out. They come back. There's a lot of foot traffic, and I understand he's over by Flag Road. We have a lot of foot traffic, thousands of kids walking around, drunk, disorderly, causing damage, littering. It's everywhere, and we do not want to become Narragansett. We get a lot of reports from Narragansett Police Department because a lot of the students go through me. And it's, they're saying that the landlords are taking care of it, but they're not. They're still dealing with it. And if we up it to more than 3, you're going to end up with 6, 7, 8. And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Because they have friends. They have people that stay with them. And it's become a hazard, actually. It has become quite a hazard. So we don't want our community to become, like Narragansett. We want it to be a safe environment, and it's not. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Racine Amos, and I live at 368 Old North Road. I'm also the property manager for Paul Sherman, and I also work at the University of Rhode Island. I actually run a large house on campus on the corner of Bayberry and Upper College, so I can definitely attest to the fact that there are a large number of student rentals on the road. One challenge that we had one year, and, it sounds like what happened at Woodruff was a fraternity rented across the street. And that's always a risk that is going to occur. And in our conversations with the landlord, they were blocking the road with their cars. Like one day I came out, they had it as a parking lot, and I couldn't get my car out to go home. And I think the challenge with that is that, anybody in the community can always go to URI and lodge a complaint against students. I think the challenge is the enforcement. So just sitting here tonight and listening, maybe it can be a consideration that all landlords have to provide a list and a register of who lives in their houses, so that anyone that has a complaint for any behavior can go to the town or wherever the registry is, pull that list, go to the Office of Commuter Housing, which is the same office that lists all the rentals available, and lodge a complaint. I have found as being the property manager, you can always have the threat of, I'm going to call the police. But once I added that extra layer of, in addition to calling the police, I'm going to report you to the university. Now the stakes are higher, because now their parents are going to most likely find out. They can lose access to their education, which is a huge motivating factor, especially when their parents are paying a lot of money if they're from out of state. It definitely has made a change in the behavior that I've seen. And also thinking about the composition. So when I relocated here 4 years ago to take my position, it was very hard for me to find housing because there's not too many dog-friendly rentals in South Kingstown. I ended up in a local apartment complex. So I can totally empathize with the level of partying. I was miserable for 7 months of my life. And eventually I had to break my lease and leave because I couldn't take it anymore. And that's actually how I found Paul. Paul was one of the few people that had a project going where somebody like myself, single mom, not making a whole lot of money, I could go in and actually design my own house to rent to own. And that's actually how that project started. Those were all single-family homes. There was a young nurse, a single woman who designed her own house. She eventually moved out to go on to something else. But that community wasn't even designed to be a student rental community. It was never designed, it never had that intention. It was actually in my other role where I have students calling every single day looking for housing, crying, saying that they can't come to school here if they don't have housing. And the year that Eldred Farm Campus Cottages actually started, the year before, we did a pilot. I had a large number of women that were looking for housing. And I called Paul up and I said, look, I was like, I know you have a vacant house. Are you interested in, let's try this. Let's see what happens. And that's how it all started. Because even today, I got 3 phone calls at my office from parents, from students looking for housing. And what can we tell them? Besides, the university doesn't have enough housing. So, I'm sure the university would love to have a bond go through to build more dorms and take up some free space and, be able to accommodate for the students. That's one of the challenges. And my fear is, as much as I love living in Kingston, is that if we have these restrictions, and I live right in front of Eldred Farm now, and Paul is forced to sell, a Greek organization could come in, buy the house, and now I have fraternities living behind me, which as a fraternity, rumor I hear is that if it's used for an educational purpose, which a fraternity would meet, they can have more than 4 people in the house if they own the house. So that's my fear, is to have 7 fraternity houses behind me, because with the proximity to campus, how awesome would that be for parties? Students can just walk over. So I'm in favor of changing it to at least 4, because if you have 2 students, 3 students, 4 students, they're still going to party. Our largest incident happened when 1 student was in the house on Christmas break and had a large rager damage the house and everything else. 1 student did that. So it's not going to make a difference if you increase it by just 1 more person. Thank you.
My name is Stan Wojciechowski. I'm a citizen of America, citizen of Rhode Island, citizen of Washington County, citizen of South County. And my wife's a landlord who mails $1,000 checks to taxes to South Kingstown. So I'm a taxpayer here. And we all really know what the problem is. It's booze. It's drinking. We've been renting homes for about 40 years in South County. South Kingston as well as Narragansett, North Kingston. The problem is booze. When they don't drink, they're fine. You're talking about college-educated people. These persons are good persons and intelligent. They're higher into society. They're intelligent. But unfortunately, we have booze. I think the university a little while back took the booze off campus, and they knew that booze was a problem. They took it off campus for a while. I think it's coming back now, what I hear. But the problem is not unrelated. The problem is not students. The problem is booze. So really, if you really want to be successful, you'd raise the age of booze. Put it out there at 24. That's what you should really do. So now when some young person, younger than 24, goes and tries to buy some booze, he can't. That's where the regulation really should happen. That would really fix the problem. Unrelated, just like the gal said, I had the same situation. One person decided to have a big party, drove over to other people's lawns. It's nothing to do with how many people in the house, whether they're related or not. Nothing to do with that. Urinating in public. That's police problem. Or about police cost. Well, I think Narragansett got into the cost recovery. So all we have to do is on those specific weekends, there's some weekends louder than others. What they've done in Narragansett is get the state police, get constables, hire a lot of people. And you pay for it by cost recovery. When you go to a house, that house pays for the police action that happened. So it's not only $500 a person, it's another $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in cost recovery. So that's how you get your money back. Now, once the students have to pay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for causing a nuisance, once that word gets around, I think that might help also. So we have to correct the problem. It's the drunk student. So we have to assault the drunk student. Fine him, assault him. I've also tried to talk to the university about if we have a drunk student on record, demand that student now have to live on campus, like an AA program. He cannot live in society out here like others. He must live on campus. Make a place for that specific group of students that are documented as being a problem. And I've seen that happen. I had a student here in South Kingstown, and he caused me a little trouble. The cops didn't come, but I just didn't like what he was doing. There was just too many bottles outside the building, if you will. So I didn't rent to him again. Lo and behold, he ends up in Narragansett, right next to my mother-in-law. So he just changed landlords, all over the place. That student should have been nailed initially and demanded that he be on campus. So therefore, unrelated is completely unrelated to the issue here. That's, like I say, 4, 5, 6, 10 makes no difference. We shouldn't even consider it. Ad hoc committee, no. Enforcement. Parking, again, enforcement. Tow trucks. Narragansett had 3 or 4 tow trucks down east to look. That has some effect. So if we got a parking issue, stage some tow trucks at the end of some main streets. So they know that if they're going to be out there, there's 3 tow trucks down at the end of the road that are going to show up down there and do some good. Peace and quiet, of course, we have ordinances for peace and quiet. It's nothing to do with unrelated, peace and quiet. Again, it's a police activity. And we just need to uptick our number of police on those troublesome weekends. Another reason we need to postpone anything on unrelated is because right here I understand this is a civil rights issue. Shall government dictate what kind of people? We don't want students, or we don't want educated people, too many of them in our house? You're telling me you're taking away my rights, my civil rights. And I thought it was only me. But then, of course, the big shot lawyer from civil rights, he realizes the problem. And he's preparing action in Narragansett to fight this civil rights issue. It's a federal issue, not a town issue. It's a civil rights issue that's going to be challenged. From what I hear, what I see, what I'm hearing, it's being challenged. At the very least, you need to wait for that to happen. So let's see what happens in Narragansett. See if they recover. See if they succeed in violating civil rights. See if the civil rights lawyer really works. Because I assume there's going to be a few $100,000 in legal fees coming down the road to fight that issue as time goes on. Because I know there are people joining this civil rights lawyer in action against the town. It's happening. So we need to wait for that. I just hope we use some common sense, and it's not about students. We're talking college-educated people that kind of go off on this booze thing. And actually, you're providing the booze by allowing the bars or whatever to sell the booze to people who are not ready for it. And that's probably what ought to change. And I know that's a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sue Camerlin. I live on French Road in Kingston. I'll keep this short because it's getting late. I live across the street from a home rented to students. I live actually diagonally across from Debbie Sheldon. I've lived there for 4 years now, and we have not had a peaceful year, student year, in the 4 years I've lived there. So I'm against increasing the number because what I've seen is they rent to 3 young men over there, and there are not 3 young men living there. There are 5 young men, or there are 6 young men, and they're girls who come in. So there are 6 or 8 people living in the house that has 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. The number of bottles of booze I pick up at the base of my mailbox, some weekends it's overflowing, some weekends there are not many. But it's, you know, I didn't expect that when I moved in. And I think it's a matter of who gets rented to and limiting the number of people that you rent to. Some of that falls back on the landlord. But it's also a problem of enforcement, which I don't see happening. And I don't know, I think that needs to get built in by you people. And I think we have to depend on you to do that.
All right, it looks as though that is the end of all public comment. Is that correct? And at this time, are there any comments from council members?
I just wanted to say, you know, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight and sharing their thoughts. I'm a rights of landowner kind of person. I think that there are some people that own houses that have, I own a house, for example, that originally had 6 bedrooms in it. And although I have no intention of ever renting it out, I'll probably be very old by the time I renovate it to the standards I'm holding it to. But I think I should have the right as a building and a landowner, if I decide to rent it out to people. And if that means 6 people as the owner of the property, I feel I'm entitled to that. So I sympathize especially with what Mr. Wojciechowski was saying about, you know, you're having your rights infringed upon a little by saying, no, you can't rent out your home. I know families in Green Hill that can't afford to live there and pay the taxes for the properties, so they rent them out for the summer. And we don't want to unfairly target and influence those families and price them out of South Kingstown. So, but I am sympathetic to all the families that are having the problems with the tenants, and I think it is an enforcement issue. That's what it really truly sounds like. I think that we have an example here of a responsible landlord trying to follow the rules that didn't decide to just trample on them and do what he wanted, and is coming here and saying, hey, let's find a solution. I do like what we discussed in the work session about having the special use permit, and I think that the planning board should really take some more time to consider this, and I think there's a solution to be found on a case-by-case basis where we hold people to task and say, okay, if you want to have 4 people living there or however many people, these are the rules. And we have the right to take that right away from you if you don't follow the rules. So I think there's an opportunity to create a policy that would find some more enforcement and have some recourse for the people who aren't following the rules. And that's how I feel about that.
I think it certainly is an enforcement issue. You know, what we've heard over and over with almost everybody that spoke is, regardless of it being 3 or 4, you're dealing with 6, 7, 8. There's excessive amounts of people coming in beyond what the limit is. So it's certainly an enforcement issue. My question is, does URI have plans to increase their housing going forward?
There's discussions if there's time for another bond issue or a public-private partnership using university property, but that hasn't come to a final plan where Regents has addressed it at all.
Right. Because, you know, I'm just thinking that whatever the solution may be will undoubtedly be a partnership with URI and the town coming up with a resolution so that this doesn't happen. No one owning a home should have to go out in the morning and pick up bottles every day and be woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's not any way you should be living. So it's certainly something we're not taking lightly. We're hearing you all. I do give Paul great credit for what he's doing, and I know he would be a phenomenal landlord. I think that it's the partnership. It's the partnership that's going to have to happen between the community, the landlords, and the university to come up with something that keeps everybody sleeping well at night and these parties from happening in our neighborhoods. We have seen what has happened over at Narragansett, and one of the concerns I've heard is the stricter Narragansett becomes with their rules, the more people are going to come into South Kingstown and be here. And we don't want to just transfer a problem from one town to another. So, you know, I do think we really need to look at this very carefully and come up with a solution that will accommodate everybody.
I don't disagree with what's been said so far. The examples that have been brought forward to us tonight that to me are totally unacceptable are instances where there's the issue is not between 3 and 4, the issue is between 6 and 7 and 8, and then their partners coming to stay over for a weekend, or somebody with social media, 30 people showing up. So I'm not convinced that the problem is the difference between a limit of 3 and a limit of 4. But I do think that we should think about the planning board giving this some consideration to come back with a special use permit that each landlord would have to satisfy a certain set of conditions, which would be parking or a number of other things that create some of these problems. I also agree. I mean, Paul, your project is perfect for what you've built, and to your credit, you didn't build it and you know, give the law the back of the hand. You didn't realize that, and I think a lot of people. I didn't realize that we had a limit of 3 unrelated people, and the world has changed. 3 unrelated people you can get to very quickly. So I certainly sympathize. Listen, 3 years ago, I lived in front of a house that had 12 people living in it. They all gave me their cell phones, and then they never answered their phone. So I know what you lived with, you're living with. But I'm not convinced that the problem is the difference of the limit of 3 to 4. I think I'd like to see it go to the planning board and come back with some recommendations. The ad hoc committee has potential for me, but I think the resolution might be quicker if we got some sort of conditions on a special use permit.
I think really they also really need to look at how to enforce this, how to put it back on the property owner that's renting these units out, so that there is some recourse. It shouldn't be just call the police or go see Jeff O'Hara. And I think there really needs to, the planning board maybe can come up with some type of idea how that can go right back onto the property owner, because responsible property owners like Paul will keep their renters in check, will make sure that they're not exceeding the limit, will make sure they're not disturbing the neighborhood. But it only takes a couple that don't pay attention to really create problems in our neighborhoods. So
I think some difficulty lies, I absolutely agree, responsible landlords are critical, and they will have their own enforcement rights, if you will. Where we run into issues are the people that are not responsible landlords, and unfortunately the neighbors who are surrounding are the ones who pay the price. I don't necessarily know whether 3 is the answer or 4 is the answer. My son lives with 6. He lives in Newport. But there's such clear delineation there. Both my husband and I have to, and he's of legal age, we have to also sign that lease. He just graduated from Salve Regina University. But somebody in the audience had suggested sending the list of people that are living off campus to the university. Is it the university's job to necessarily enforce off-campus housing? No, it's not, and it never will be. And that is very difficult for accountability. But in some ways, I shouldn't say it this way, but it kind of puts the fear of God into the kids, because if you know your parents are paying tuition and you have a problem, then guess what? You may not be at that house anymore. Not everybody is as responsible as other people, but the accountability has to lie with the landlords who make the decisions to rent as well. Kids will be kids, and I feel bad for the people who stood up tonight and said they've had parties where 30, 100, and they had to go out and clean up the next day. You shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't. So I think enforcement is the answer, and I do agree that we should have an ad hoc committee or have the planning board discuss this absolutely further, because obviously there are people in this audience that are extremely concerned, and I hear your plight. I certainly hear your plight.
I find myself agreeing with a lot of what I hear in the audience and what I hear up here. I think that 3 is not a magic number. If 3 were a magic number, then Narragansett wouldn't have the problems that it has had, because that was their limit until just a couple months ago. I think it has much more to do with development patterns over time. Eastward Look came into being as a summer sort of village, and that sort of geared it towards becoming student housing in the winters. We don't have that same situation here in South Kingstown, and I don't think we're likely to. Nevertheless, I think we need to look at this very carefully. I think the planning board could devise a special use permit, and I think we can ask them to do that. I do think it's also wise to have an ad hoc committee that focuses on the enforcement issue. I think clearly that's a big piece of this. I hope that URI could be involved on that ad hoc committee. So if we can take action to make that happen, do you think that's a possibility, Steve?
One thing I did want to mention is that the planning staff did review a potential for use of a special use permit process. One of the things that was missing in my review of it for enforcement purposes was there was no provision for the potential revocation of a special use permit if, in fact, there were violations of the standards of that special use permit. So the council, when it deals with liquor licenses, has the right, based on the police department reporting to you, to demand a show cause hearing. If there's revocation potential, the property owner has a greater responsibility in terms of managing that property. So too do the lessees within the property. If there were a special use process in place from an enforcement perspective, it should include a review, because remember, special use permits run with property. So we could have the most stellar representative of the community getting a special use permit today and selling to somebody who, similar to the situations that we had on Silver Lake, a property owner that was absent and allowed activities that would have never occurred under the previous owner. So from an enforcement standpoint, one of the first steps would be there. The other enforcement issues that we need to do is greater cooperation with the university in terms of police coordination in and around the campus to ensure that if there are issues, they're being addressed. I think we can work on those items, but I don't think special use permits are the answer unless there's an ability to be able to remove that permit if, in fact, there's abuse of the privilege.
And we could make that a stipulation to the planning board to look at that one. Great.
Because I think there's a legal review, because the other question is, once the leases have been put in place, there's going to be a reasonable expectation to be able to remedy it, which means probably on a semester-to-semester basis. That's the problem that we ran into at Woodruff Avenue, was the existing leases in place with that property owner. But certainly we could look at it. I mean, I think the council this evening has really three different processes that they could go forward with. One is to deny the request as presented, two, approve the request as presented, or three, return and send it back to the planning board with or without an ad hoc committee for their review of other means, whether they want to set up an ad hoc group or whether the council wishes to. I think that's your choice, because you've got those types of choices, but that's where you are with the public hearing at this point.
Okay. Do you think the ad hoc committee would necessarily have to be part of the planning board process? I feel like the mission of the ad hoc committee, if we decide to go that way, should be strictly, or maybe not strictly, but largely on enforcement of the ordinance. Maybe take a look at Narragansett, what they're doing, or what other towns have done, and bring the university into that process. And it doesn't necessarily even have to inform the special use permit process. I think the planning board itself can probably do that.
I think that if there was an ad hoc committee that was looking at enforcement potential, it should probably be managed through the police department, right, in conjunction with the URI police department and with assistance in terms of experience with Narragansett. I think we've got to look at, enforcement sounds a lot easier than it actually is when we have to deal with the legal requirements of what an officer can do in the field. Unless there's an open container, he or she's not able to take specific actions or to take actions based on hearsay evidence. They've got to witness those different things. And I think that we need to have the police department in coordination with any ad hoc committee to ensure that people are dealing with reasonable expectations on performance.
Agreed.
So maybe we need a motion to close the public hearing before we take action? I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
So moved. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 That motion carries unanimously.
I would like to make a motion that we send this back to the planning board for review into the special use permit with the show cause revocation. Is that the proper term for that? And the suggestion that they form an ad hoc committee. But I don't think, like Abel said, those should be tied in necessarily together. I think they can make the case for the special use permit separate and make it a long-term goal to have that ad hoc committee to address some of the enforcement issues. So that would be my suggestion.
My suggestion would be to keep the two separate, I think, as Steve was suggesting, which is definitely send it to the planning board, have them give you some options with regard to more than 3. Does it require special use permit with all the things you've talked about, parking requirements, et cetera. And then at the same time, you could have a separate vote to establish an ad hoc committee in conjunction with the police department, who will then get involved, URI police, maybe Narragansett police, at least to get some feedback going there, and not really put that burden, so to speak, on the planning board to do that.
Okay. So then I would just rescind that motion and instead make a motion to send this back to the planning board for further review.
I'll second that.
So moved. Any discussion? And that's...
I think we should make clear that our opinion is that there should be development of a special use permit with revocation.
Yes,
correct.
Definitely.
I guess we're looking for a clarification. You're looking to send that to the planning board.
Mm-hmm.
In so doing that, are you also rejecting the petition that's before you this evening?
Yes. We're not increasing it tonight. We're hoping for... I would
So
assume
do you
we
need a
have
motion
to
for
either
that?
approve or deny this tonight, correct? Or
I thought the third option was that we could send it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to deny it outright.
I just think he's entitled to a decision.
Okay.
Otherwise, what you're doing is you're continuing your decision on this.
Which you've closed the public hearing.
You've closed the public hearing, so there'll be no more public comment. The way the motion's set now, it's going to the planning board, and the planning board's going to say, okay, here are our recommendations on how we should modify what's before you, and then you can decide whether or not to accept that or not. But my fear is, since you've closed the public hearing, and if you get a substantive proposal back from the planning board, you're going to need input again. So it's like a chicken and egg thing that we have going
The
here.
language is going to change. If the language changes, there's no special use permit that's been advertised.
Well, that's true. You're right. It's going to have to be
So it's gonna have to go
re-advertised.
to a hearing.
There's no question. I mean, Steve's just pointing out, he's totally right. There's no language in the current proposal as is to provide for a special use permit. None of that was advertised. Nothing was discussed about that. So in essence, you'd be starting from scratch again. So you probably should go the route of denying this particular proposal with the understanding that you've obviously sent it back to the planning board. You're looking for something new to come back before you, and then you can...
Okay, so it won't exclude us from granting a special use permit in the future or something that would allow him to have more than 3 people? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
We'd have to re-advertise it. We'd have to have another public hearing where people would have the opportunity now to comment on whatever that is that comes before you again.
Okay.
right. So we need perhaps
Couple of
three
motions. So
motions.
you've already got one motion that you haven't voted on yet,
Right.
right? To send it to the planning board.
Right.
Then you probably should have another really, first would be a motion to deny this particular proposal. The second motion would be to send it to the planning board to come back to you with thoughts on the special use permit process. And then if you want to set up the ad hoc committee, that'd be a third motion.
Let's do it.
It's complicated, but I think that's the order you need to do, 1, 2, and 3.
All right. We do have a motion on the table, but we should...
I'll rescind it so that we can go in order.
You can withdraw that so you can
Yes.
begin.
All right. Do I hear a motion on 7B?
Make a motion that we deny the increase from 3 people to 4 people.
Second.
So moved. Any further discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously.
So now we make a motion to send this back to the planning board for the special use permits.
To ask them to report back to you with their thoughts on a special use permit for more than 3 unrelated individuals and what parameters they would recommend that would be included to be considered with that special use permit.
So moved.
Second. Is it?
Great. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. And then the final motion, if I hear it, is for the...
Would it be an opportunity to have Vespia put together a scoping memo for you for the next meeting?
For the next meeting? That would be fine. Thank you. Thank you, folks, for bearing with us through all that. We appreciate all your comments. Item 8 is communications. 8A is a communication dated August 3rd, 2016 from Andrew Martinez, submitting his resignation from the Conservation Commission. It's been received and placed on file. What are we going to do with that?
I make a motion that we accept communication 8A, and I would ask Dale to draft a letter of thank you for Andrew Martinez's service on the Conservation Commission.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously. And it brings us to item 9 on our agenda, which is comments from interested citizens. We've lost most of you, I see. But anybody who wants to is still welcome to come up to our podium and tell us how we could be doing our job better. Or just tell us that we're doing a great job. Better. All right. Are there any comments from counselors?
Well, I would just like to wish everyone a happy back-to-school days. Next week is the first day of school for South Kingstown, and I know everybody's very excited. My grandson is starting kindergarten, so I'm amazed and excited as well.
This Saturday, we had an opportunity to attend a ceremony at Riverside for a Civil War veteran that was passing through on his way to his final resting place in Maine, and it was the first ceremony of that kind that I'd ever been to, and it was incredibly moving and very touching that somebody who fought in the Civil War that was from a division in Rhode Island, they had so much history on him, and they were honoring him. I just thought it was really incredible, and I was really glad that we were able to be there and see it and give him the proper honor he deserved. So I hope that, I'm sure the story will be in the papers this week, and I think even the Providence Journal was there to offer some coverage on the issue. So I hope people will read it and just remember people from the Civil War from our town who sacrificed for us. It was really lovely. So
that was amazing. They passed his ashes. They traveled with them and passed them off in each state to the next state, and he came from, I believe it was Ohio, and they was going to Maine. So it was quite an honor that out of all of Rhode Island, they chose our town to stop in, and we were able to see the ceremony, which was beautiful.
Yes, concur. I especially enjoyed learning of the existence of the Patriot Guard. Is
Yes.
that what is a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Nolan Electric from North Situate for the electrical wiring upgrade project at the Senior Center Annex in accordance with bid specifications in an amount not to exceed $28,900, including a contingency as further described in a memo from the Leisure Services Director.
As noted in the memorandum from Terry Murphy, we've gone out to bid initially for the electrical upgrades that were necessary on the Senior Center Annex. We went out to bid after we found that the improvements were going to be necessary. Once we started, there was a $147,000 grant that was in place to be able to make renovations to that facility. Once the walls were exposed and we saw what the wiring was, there was a need to change that. We've obtained a $25,000 additional grant through the town of Narragansett to be able to perform that work. The initial bids came in, which is the first with the item C, at about $48,000, which was far in excess of what the probable construction cost was when it was when the in-house estimatings were done. We then attempted to work with that contractor to reduce the price. We did not get it down to a price that we thought we would reasonably be able to support. We then revised the bidding documents and took two items out of the bid specifications that could be deferred to a later time and rebid the item. That's where item D comes in. Item D, we did receive a bid price of the $28,900 when we went out with the secondary bid. So what we're asking you to do is to reject the first bidding that was done and to approve an award on the second bidding. On the second bidding, we did have three bidders. The lowest qualified bidder is Nolan at the $26,300 base price, plus a contingency amount that would bring the amount up to $28,900. Ask the council approve both resolutions as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations of item 13C and item 13D.
So moved. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously. Item 13E is a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Dane Tech of Johnston for the purchase and installation of an electronic door access and surveillance system for the South Kingstown Community Recreation Center in an amount not to exceed $18,234, including a contingency. Further described in a memo from the Leisure Services Director to the Town Manager.
As noted in Terry's memorandum for the electronic door access and surveillance system, we did receive two bids on this. The lowest qualified bid was Dane Tech. We had budgeted $15,000 for this item, so at $16,577, we will need to use a portion of the contingency within the Recreation Center. Dane also provides all the security and door fobs for the school department and Union Fire District. We're also looking at that for Town Hall and for the police department and most likely our library system as well. What we're looking to do is to have one uniform system that we will be using in each of the municipal buildings. Each of those, based on the hardwire that the town has installed, would then be able to have all that live time available in police dispatch. It'll also give us the videotaping that's necessary. The award tonight will also provide for cameras on the exterior of the rec center, which we felt was an appropriate safety measure based on the client base that will be using that facility. Ask the council's approval as presented.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve item number 13E.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously. 13F is a resolution authorizing the finance director to enter into an investment advisory services agreement with PFM Asset Management of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, presented in their proposal dated July 28, 2016, for a 3-year term renewable at the town's option. Further described in a memo from the finance director to the town manager.
If you recall, I think it was last December, the council awarded a contract to be able to develop a investment policy statement as well as to do a cash flow analysis. Then in May, we brought the proposed investment policy statement to the council as well as the cash flow analysis. The cash flow analysis indicated that there was between a $30 and $35 million core investment portfolio that was available. And to use the investment policy, The council also provided an opportunity for the finance director to solicit proposals for investment advisory services. Those services would provide with the town with access to secure federal and U.S. treasuries. It would also provide an opportunity for management of our credit risk, advice as far as periodic cash flow evaluations, securing brokers, all of these things, as well as to provide for performance evaluations on the investment portfolio. This is a key to the town in terms of proper portfolio management, and we then went out for the proposals. 4 proposals were received. The lowest qualified presenter is PFM Asset Management, Inc. We're anticipating a cost, if there was a $30 million portfolio management, of around $32,500. Other firms do not provide the same level of service in terms of ongoing education and cash flow analysis. So we're recommending that the council provide award to PFM Asset Management as presented in the bidding documents.
Thank you.
Motion to approve agenda item 13F.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Item G is a resolution authorizing the town manager to execute individual payment in lieu of taxes agreements for FY 2016-2017 with the South Kingstown Land Trust, the Jewish Children's Home of Rhode Island, Camp Jory, and Welcome House of South County in accordance with the Town Code, Chapter 17, Taxation, Article 4, property tax exemptions and payment in lieu of tax agreements for charitable organizations. And this is to affirm policy guidelines described in a memo from the town manager to the town council dated August 11th.
Since 2003, the town has maintained 3 payment in lieu of tax agreements with the Jewish Children's Home of Rhode Island for Camp Jury, the South Kingstown Land Trust, and Welcome House. These are living documents on a year-to-year basis based on what assessment values would be. As far as the land trust is concerned, they pay a 50% tax on the building and land where their field house is located off of Matunic Beach Road. As far as the Welcome House is concerned, there are multiple residential units, and they are responsible for payment of a 25% of what the full tax value would be for those residential units. Other properties owned by Welcome House that are used specifically for the private nonprofit purpose of housing homeless individuals or the administrative offices are tax exempt. The Jewish Children's Home owns a large acreage which used to be a portion of Cards Camp. With that, they are paying taxes on what has become the caretaker's home on that property. So it's the land and the building as a house site that they pay taxes on. All of the other improvements that they've made that are on that property, the multiple buildings, I think at this point there's about 14 different structures on that property that are used within the camp environment, are tax exempt, and that includes the meeting house, the synagogue, that entire area. What we're looking at there is that they would be paying simply on the house itself and the building lot that it resides on. This is the same agreements that we've had since 2003 with each of the entities, other than the assessment values change on a yearly basis based on whatever the revaluations bring to us. This year, we provided council with a great deal of background information in recognition of the council's policy that was adopted in July dealing with organizations applying for town funding consideration. While this isn't a funding consideration, it's a tax relief, so we felt that it was important to request those agencies to provide their IRS 990 forms as well as background information for the council to feel comfortable. I'd certainly be able to answer any questions council has on any of the organization pilots that we've drafted and placed before you.
Any questions for Steve? All right, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve item number 13G.
Second. So moved. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to the end of our public agenda. And we have to move into closed executive session now, folks, which means you will have to leave.
Make a motion to move into closed executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A5 to discuss matters related to the acquisition or lease of real property for public purposes or for the disposition of publicly held property where an advanced public information would be detrimental to the interests of the public.
Second.
So moved. We'll need a roll call for this one.
Council President Collins.
Aye.
Council Vice President Haley.
Aye. Here.
Councilwoman Clow.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gledhill.
Aye.
Councilman Daly.
Aye.
Unanimous affirmative vote to adjourn or recess to closed executive session to discuss matters related to the acquisition or lease of real property for public purposes at 9:55.
Garlic farm in Coventry. It was really good. We're all just saying the same thing. Did you just say I'm starving my...
Good night, Billy.
What's this? It's full. You have something yours? Is this yours? It's what you want. I love that.
It is. I like Stan. He's always got a point.
Yeah, you just can't.
We're going to talk about this too. Are we talking about this too?
I don't know.
It's
This
more-
was so bizarre. Like, against the town council.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, we'll just do this, right? You guys are going to agree.
Yeah, you know. Yeah.
Tell you who we're gonna ask for.
This guy's got to get out. Put it in here somewhere. I tried. I wasn't. It was like a Eastward look party.
I've been to parties at Eastward.